We have a great group here. You look at them, they obviously look like a great group that's going to be engaged. Their bios are in your folder, so I'm not going to do too much of an intro for them. You can read about each one of them. But I will give a little preview. Abed Aga is the founder of Vine Lab, an UAE-based company that creates tremendous content specifically for mobile. And for all of you who downloaded the Everything Mobile app today, they are actually the ones who helped us in creating that. So thank you for that, and I hope you're enjoying the application. Badr Ward is the CEO of Artika, which is a leading company in creating quality Arabic content for both mobile and the internet. We also have Hossam, did I pronounce it correctly? There we go, Sakari, who's the head of audience at Yahoo Middle East and is a former head of BBC Arabic. And we have Wael Altili, I think I pronounced that one better, I asked them both, who is the co-founder of Harabish, a company that constantly makes us laugh about our political leaders through their digital animations. And we're actually working with Harabish to develop a video for Creative Commons. So thank you for Harabish for that as well. So now you see how they all get up there. They work with us and then they end up staying on panels. I'd just like to remind our panelists of the rules. You each have about 5 to 7 minutes to present. If you start to go over, I'll start to, rustle in this seat here and get you moving.
Sounds like a game.
Yes, exactly. It's a game. So don't challenge me on that one, though. And then after that, we're, of course, going to open the questions up to the audience. We're going to hopefully have a great conversation between all of them. So without further ado, we're going to start. And our first speaker is going to be Badr Ward from Artika.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and I'm glad to be here, and it's a pleasure to be with any panel with Hussam. He makes things spices things up, and you'll guys see that as we go along.
You're already on Twitter, by the way.
Okay, so we were just having a chat in the break now that it's going to be very tough for us to get you guys after the social and the dramatic, really the mood that we got in with Twitter. Now we need to spice it up a bit with entertainment. This is fun, so we need to start seeing smiles on your faces, yeah, so that we keep ourselves motivated. Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about mobile entertainment. I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to talk to you about So I'm going to start off with some trends of the industry and an overview of what's happening, with some interesting statistics, and then I'm going to take you on a journey on how we converted that into something that's suitable for a specific segment in this region. So if you're looking at these devices, and usually it's interesting to see, because I see different expressions on people's faces depending on their age. So these devices up there, I'm sure all of you have used any of them in a certain point of time, and now I'm sure that you agree with me that most of these, the best place for them is the museum these days. So, and then I'm going to talk to you about how that's being reflected into numbers. So we're seeing things like the tape recorders, the Walkman CD players. We're no longer using that. So what are we doing instead? What we're doing is we're doing a lot of more streaming and using the internet and different devices to consume entertainment, and specifically music or audio entertainment. So these are statistics from Google Trends, and you can see that over the last years, the kind of fluctuations and the increase in the search for streaming over the last, specifically, you can noticeably see 2008 and 9 and 10, a huge jump compared to even iTunes. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of, if most of you are aware of these services that you see here, but people in the industry and the music industry can really map these names with the services. But there are currently huge services worldwide with millions of active listeners. So if you look at Vivo, for example, right now Vivo has around 50 million active subscribers. So I named the slide The Race. It's actually a big race what's happening now between the old traditional way of consuming entertainment and music and with the new current service. So a lot of people tell me that this whole subscription model doesn't work, so for me, figures speak louder. To bring it closer to this, the subject of this conference, as you can see, mobile is definitely taking over. So, and then when you look at it, you zoom in a bit on that, and you look at where people are consuming music. You even get reports with, you can see that Android and iPhone are having good competition when it comes to the consumption from the different platforms. And then some of my colleagues later, we're going to go into more details about specific applications and case studies. I'm just going to talk to you for a minute or two about how we use these trends and what we did with locally and regionally here. At Irtiqa, we launched a product or a service called Nagamati. So Nagamati is the first Islamic and objective entertainment streaming service, and we actually believe it's the first one in the world, so it's not just in the Middle East. And we got an award for that as the best Arabic website. I'll talk to you a bit about what strategies we used to get to this level. And I just want to bring this slide up because it's interesting. So many times I have discussions with people and they tell me your niche is so small. And I got this slide up, and then I'm going to, in a few minutes, I'm just going to bring back, I want you to guess the numbers, and then I'm going to map the faces to the numbers in a few seconds. So basically, I'm just going to talk to you about what we used or what was our main strategy when we were building the product. First is to, and this is my advice to everybody that's doing something in entertainment and mobile in the industry, is first you need to understand your market, understand your consumer. And a good example of that, and I promised somebody to bring a tarbouch and a dirbaki, and I did. You can see that. So when we started working with this field in this industry, we had really, although we come from the region, most of the guys work in the region, we had to really understand cultural differences. What is the difference between a drum? What is the difference between music? What is the difference between percussion? So it was so many technical things which are so related to the culture. So the first thing that we did was we had to understand what are the different cultural barriers we have, what can we work with, what can't we work with. And once we did that, we started personalizing. So as you know, in our area, the female subject is very sensitive. You need to handle it in a certain way. You cannot show a lot of pictures when it comes to culture. So what we had to do, we had to build special branding and special products which are tailored around women, giving the woman her kind of entertainment, but within the cultural boundaries that we have. And then lastly is localization. You know, I'm sure that, by the way, these are brands that are used in the product itself. And if you can see the shimag, or the ghutra, we call it. And to somebody that's not from the region, it all looks the same. But if you really get into the localization, you realize that it's the way that you set the ghutra in each country, or even specifically in each city, is different. So when you're talking to that kind of audience, you need to really understand their mentality, their preferences. So somebody in Qatar wears his ghutra in a different way than somebody in Saudi or Kuwait or Dubai. And we've built all of that personalization and localization into our products to make it really, really local and delivers value to consumers in the area. So I'll end with this slide because I've finished my 7 minutes. So this is actually, it's an interesting comparison for us. I mean, the top 3 layers are people associated with objective and Islamic entertainment. And the bottom layers are the general artists which are not associated with. And for us, it's very interesting for us to see that there is a very good comparison when it comes to the numbers. So that motivates us because it shows us that our product has, and the kind of content and the kind of value that we work with has a huge demand in the region. And I'll stop here, and then we can ask any questions while we move into the panel. Thank you.
Thank you for self-policing. Go ahead, clap for him. That's good. And our next speaker is Abed.
You ready to time it?
I got you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. Basically, my name is Abed. I run a startup out of Dubai called Vine Lab. We specialize in entertainment. We've done a lot of work with broadcasting companies and artists, developing a lot of digital products, and mainly over mobile. So we started in 2010. We have clients like NBC, Rotana, LBC, Netlog, EMI, and several other record labels that we're working with. Several apps we launched. We launched a few apps for CNBC Arabia. NBC launched a few, Sad al-Mala'ib, their guide. For artists like Miriam Faris, she's a Lebanese artist, and Lara Skandar, Egyptian American, and Al TV. That's some of them. The most notable one is Arab Idol. So we're going to go over a little bit of the features that we've built. Basically, it's an app that was launched about 3 weeks ago. We've included a ton of features that are social. So you can check in through the app. You can basically engage in a discussion over Twitter. You can create your own avatar and participate in a mobile singing competition. Usage have been massive to a point that yesterday, just last night, the app, basically the servers of NBC just went down briefly. So, and that's just been 2 weeks of activity. So, over with the boring stuff and the marketing stuff, we're gonna do a reality check. So, 95% of you will check your smartphone at least twice while I'm talking. The other 5% is probably gonna be dying to do that. Fact of life, we're all ADDs. ADD, by definition, is a condition characterized by when a person is easily distracted and has difficulty staying focused on individual activity for any period of time. If we look around us, this is happening everywhere, and we got to live with it. So what used to be considered antisocial and rude by being in a restaurant, for example, picking up the phone and tweeting or checking out email is now the norm and is actually being more social. The fact is, in a lot of cases, we see a lot of people coming up with conversations in a restaurant just based on a tweet, for example, that they read. So there's a way of social media enhancing and taking our life to be slightly more social in two different screens. So that's an article that came out on TechCrunch a few months back, which I encourage a lot of people to read. Just give you a little bit of seconds to write it down. It writes a lot about how basically everything around social is happening in a physical life. And everybody who's sitting in a restaurant or having dinner with family is always being distracted. The older people are refusing it. The younger generation is considering it as a norm. So, reality, we do live in a two-screen world. We see that in concerts all the time. You can tell the number of mobiles that are present. Here's an arrow if you haven't seen it. What used to be this, a physical social experience in a living room, is turning into this, where a person is watching a TV screen, having his mobile, tweeting about a show, and talking about it with his friends. And it's gone beyond the geographical boundary. So it's no longer in the living room, it's cross-border. Some stats for those who love it. Mobile today is over 5.5 billion users. There's about 250 million iOSs. For those who don't know, iOS is the operating system of Apple, which includes iPhones, iPods, and iPads. Android is the biggest operating system. There's about 750,000 activations per day. iPad, 2 million in the first 2 months, 1 every 3 seconds. There are over 35 million devices sold so far. Someone corrected me, said 40 million, because they're not announced yet. So, iPhone users spend at least 30 minutes per day on apps. By 2013, more people will access the internet from a mobile device than a computer. And I actually read this morning that smartphone sales have exceeded desktop sales. There are 7 billion human beings who live on Earth. That was just confirmed a couple of months back. 85% have a mobile device by the end of 2011. There are 4 births a second, 55 mobile phones sold every second. 25% are smartphones. Let's look a little bit about how the world is moving, possibly in problems. So we've had in January 2009, we've had a recession. We've heard a lot of problems with revolutions in this part of the world. We hear a lot about problems like climate change. We've seen the tsunami in Japan in August 2011. Mobile seems not to be noticing all of this. So in January, 2009, there were 4.2 million devices. Today, there's 5.5 billion, and that's a 20% growth. The definition of mobile is changing. So what we used to consider as a mobile phone is now, a laptop is considered also as mobile. Tablets are mobile. And soon enough, we're going to start seeing very smart dashboards in cars that are also mobile. Mobile apps specifically that are present across all of these screens, they account for 50% of all mobile internet traffic. What's an app? It's basically a focus. It's a destination. It's basically a brand owning a screen real estate from a mobile device, from a user. Very quick case studies for those who love the numbers. This is an app that we've done for NBC. It's called NBC FM. $55,000 the first week. No announcement was made. It's all through word of mouth, viral comments, through Facebook likes, and Twitter mentions. Within 6 months, 40 million radio track streams, 100,000 shares, 1 million comments, which means 4 comments per minute. Miriam Faris, Lebanese artist, $20,000 the first week. Again, no announcement made before her new album was released. It included an exclusive track, which basically increased the viral effect. Obviously through viral comments as well. Through a QR code and a physical album cover. So that was the first artist in the region to implement a QR code on the actual album cover, which was very progressive. Within 2 months, 1 million plays for the exclusive track, 200,000 comments. Lessons learned, always make sure you have exclusive content on your mobile devices. It makes a big difference. Content by itself is not enough, so you have to make sure it's properly disseminated, there's properly distributed, and includes a lot of gamification, like leaderboards, badges, a lot of interactivity, push notifications, geolocation, and most importantly, with a lot of brands we worked with, had always a concern with build the conversation around your content. Most importantly, conclusion, make sure you always take control of both screens, capitalize on our new ADD geosocial hyperreality. Thank you.
Since I can pretend that I'm checking my phone and my iPad at once, so I really was focusing on stuff for the panel, I promise. Our next speaker, he told me that he's going to be the cynical one about mobile on this panel, so we'll see just how cynical. Please welcome Wael Al-Tili.
Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And actually, I'm going to be the pessimistic guy here, and I hope that you don't regret bringing me here. Basically, I'm going to tell you, don't consider it a presentation. It's actually a sharing some of our experiences with mobile and a little bit of whining here and there. But I think the whole sum is sometimes we learn from our failure, and sometimes, looking at number, let's consider it like, a reality check of what might happen and what should be done. And I think hopefully this will result on a really nice discussions here. My name is Wael Al-Tili. I'm a co-founder of Kharabish. Kharabish basically is a native-born online entertainment. We publish shows that is designed especially for online users, serving Arab internet users around the world. We started from mobile, and then we went off mobile, and then back to mobile. So this is the story that I'm going to tell you. So once upon a time, there was a guy, who was me, working as a designer in a company in 2005. In 2005, we started to see mobile, and before 2005, we started to see mobiles with bigger screens and colored. And at that time, we started to see a lot of MMS kind of content. At the same time, in 2005, blogging, user-generated content started. We started to see Flickr, we started to see bloggers. I was a blogger at that time. We started to see Facebook and YouTube. And a movement of user-generated content, and a bubble of user-generated content started at that time. But so far, there was no clear kind of business out of that. But in 2005, I started my first MMS channel with a mobile operator, and it was a good business at that time. And then in 2006 and 2007, we started to see, web push channels and video streaming. Now, mobile is not only about calling. Mobile might be something else, It opened a whole door for a new entertainment industry. It was short, low quality, but yet funny, and people loved it, and people started to share these through Bluetooth and through other stuff. At that time, mobile operators were hungry for content, and we started to see companies, content aggregator, are searching and sniffing. And being a blogger, I've been contacted by so many content aggregators asking me, why don't you create content for us? I was a cartoonist and I was a storyteller at that time. And I ended up being a manager. And it was easy to monetize because, it was guaranteed, almost guaranteed. You go, you open a channel with a mobile operator, and you get revenue share out of it, and easily people can pay for it. It's the only way at that time where people can pay for content, in the Arab region. And I'm talking about the scene in the Arab region. It might be different in Europe or in the United States. So it was a perfect time to open a business. So we started Kharabish in 2008, and we started to, at Kharabish, we wanted to be provocative, we wanted to be edgy, we wanted to have freedom. This is why we called it Kharabish, scribbles, It means it means all about being spontaneous and being experimental, and this is the voice of youth that we thought at that time, this is the people who are using the technology and what might consume this. And we wanted to be local. We wanted to tell our own stories, the stories that we hear, the jokes that we hear in our street, in our homes, and between our friends, And the whole concept is by having a low-cost production, short, smart, and snappy, and resellable and rescalable, so that you can create this content, you sell it, and resell it to other mobile operators around the region. But unfortunately, things did not go well for a long list of reasons. It's been 2 years, 3 years since we're doing this, and we can talk about it for 3-4 forums like this. But I tried to summarize this quickly so that, we can spot the issues that we faced as producers, as content creators, We're not technologists. We're people who created content, and we wanted to see if mobile can work for a channel for us. So for me, and we're going to talk about mobile operator specifically, there was no clear strategy of content selection and distribution from the operator themselves. They called it VAS, value-added services, which is not the case. It's an entertainment. It's a completely different thing. We were talking to engineers. We were talking to marketing people who were, trying to understand what is work and what doesn't work. In this case, we should have been talking to people from a media background, from an editorial background, who can understand content, who can understand stories, who can understand people and viewership. But unfortunately, we were talking to engineers, and we were talking to marketing people who does not understand anything about, what a content means, Payment and money collection, this was another problem because we were a third party, so you wait until the mobile operator pays the money, and then the content aggregator pays the money, and it was a long process which resulted for so many cash flow problems. Also, it was over-controlled, high sensitivity from the mobile operator because, this content does not work for our brand, this content does work for our brand. You have to decide whether you're a publishing platform or you're putting a service, and advertising for your platform. No, you have to decide. There was no proper support for our promotion for the content. It was completely rip-off in terms of, the users, because web push technology, you pay for the SMS. Oh, I have to, okay. So there was so many issues, technical and other stuff, ended up, and the last thing, that YouTube and smartphone, killed the whole web push thing, because now you can watch videos for free. So we shifted our focus into web. for the following reason. We want to test our content and prove that our content is, people like our content. We want to let people know about us, and it was a way to free our creativity. No boundaries. You can publish whatever you want. And it was easy, free way to publish and go viral. Kharabish now, we have more than 40 shows. We launched our new portal in January. We have around 500 million playbacks per month on YouTube. We have a network of YouTube partner channels. We have around 1 million fans on Facebook network, our network of Facebook. And now why we want to go back to mobile, because we discovered that 20% of our viewership comes from mobile devices. And this is why we started to explore and go back to mobile and building mobile apps and portal for our website. We did an experiment with Google Current. Google Current is basically a new product from Google where it enables anybody to build an Android and iPhone application. You just put the stream of your content, whether it's text or images or videos, and it gives you a magazine kind of style, and you can customize it a little bit and then export it to iPhone and Android. So we launched with Google Current in the US. Now it's launched in the US, still not in the region. And then the dilemma is basically, and here is a question for the mobile operator, and paid video retail concept as a business model failed because media in the Arab region is free, and there is a competition on that because we know that media, people here in the Arab world like to watch content for free, and they don't like to pay for it. And free publishing platform, we need to figure out the proper business model, especially in the mobile field. Thank you. And basically, this is a video shows a little bit of samples of our work. Is there a voice here? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Is there a voice?
Thank you. And now we're going to have our last presenter, Hossam Sakari from Yahoo.
Well, I was about to tell you after your presentation that next time you come to Yahoo, don't talk to engineers, you talk to me. But after seeing that you took more than your time and you played this video, you will talk to engineers. Okay. I'm not going to repeat what has been said. I think what we're witnessing here is that there is a migration process happening. The web is leaving the desk, and it's leaving it fast. And we can see that our consumption is based on multi-devices. It's not just about one particular device that people adhere to. In the past, you used to hear people saying that I like radio or I like TV. And there were people who are really adamant that they don't consume television. It's only radio that they like. Nowadays, people really don't differentiate between radio, TV, mobile experiences, and even tablets. And if you look at the Middle East, you will see that the mobile experience is growing, and it's growing fast. Tablets, in this example, we have done a survey, and we asked a number of people what are they going to buy next out of the devices that are available in the market. And you can see that 45% said that's going to be a tablet, 35% it's a smartphone, 30% is a laptop, and much less is the desktop. If you combine the three to the left together, you will get quite a lot of interest. And if you see what people can do when they are watching television, it's often the case that they do consume quite a lot of online experience. We heard today from Gabe in the morning that people are multitasking nowadays. Younger generations are able to multitask much better than older generations. And still, it would be very difficult to consume a magazine or a newspaper, but people now often like to consume TV associated with some form of online experience. So what are we doing about it? In our case, what we are doing is we are going for extended experiences. We are going for an experience that does not limit your entertainment options to one particular device. So it's not really about getting what you used to get on TV on a mobile device or on a tablet. It's about having an extended experience. And one example of this is Into Now. And I don't know if anyone of you has used it. It's not in this region yet, but it has been launched in the States. And Into Now is an application, it's a mobile application that you start on your mobile, and if you're watching a TV show, the application recognizes the program that is playing, even if it's a chat show. It doesn't have to be music. And as soon as it does, it brings all the information that relates to the show, and it brings all the social activity from your own sphere that are related to the show. So if any of your friends on Twitter or Facebook is watching this particular show and making any comments about it on the Twitter sphere or Facebook, you'll get these comments. Any news that relate to the topic or the theme that is about this show, you will get it also on the device. So you'll be consuming the experience across these two platforms. And I will leave you now with two basic thoughts. One of them is about our relationship to technology, communication technologies in particular. If you look at this interesting relationship, and if we believe in what Marshall McLuhan said at some point in time, that technology is an extension of man, and whenever you create any particular device or artifact, you're extending some of you, some aspect of you into that particular thing that you create. So a car is an extension of your ability to move. A car takes you further beyond what your own legs can do. A phone is doing the same. It can get you to listen to voices from a very long distance. And what we have been doing with these technologies is that in the beginning we were embedding our own intelligence in the device itself. We were bundling the artifact or the product with our own intelligence. And over the year, we started separating them in layers. We are creating a layer of intelligence that we call the system, another layer that we call the software. And we started distributing them. So instead of having everything in one device, we started distributing them across networks, across clouds, across servers. And what we are having now is that this mobile device is turning into a remote control. It's turning into a device that can control your entertainment experience across platforms, across networks, and across distances and boundaries. And this is very relevant in our region. And if you allow me to talk a little bit about revolutions, especially that we are coming a few days after a massacre that happened in Egypt, and almost a year after big changes in the region, you will see that people now are consuming their information experience in a very particular way. It's no longer people waiting to hear or get information from TV channels or satellite channels. It's people actually sitting, watching, tweeting, commenting, Facebooking at the same time and consuming all this experience in exactly the same way as they produce it. So it became a two-way experience bundled with the views and reflections of those who consume it and distributed across devices and consumed in exactly the same way. And that's why the next phase is not just going to be about one device, it's going to be create an experience that extends across all these devices. In future, it's not going to be just digital devices, as we can see, it's going to be digital and analog, bundled with what people think about it. So it's you and the technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll open it up to questions shortly. I had quite a few questions from that, but I'll start talking about, a lot of you alluded to this, and it's some of the challenges in developing content for mobile. At ICT Qatar, we're definitely not an entertainment industry, even though we do events like this. But we find that our website has 30% of its traffic similar coming from mobile phones now. And we developed a cute little application or a website, a mobile site that really didn't look like our actual site. And we now realize people expect the same experience that they get on their computer, on their mobile phone. What are some of the challenges you're facing in that move, in the entertainment industry and the different, clients that you work with, where they're so used to the online or television, as the case may be, then moving to get that same or similar type experience to a mobile phone? And I'll open that to any of you.
Yeah. Basically, one of the major challenges in terms of experience and in terms of business-wise. In terms of experience, it's totally different when you design a video in a small screen and different than designing it for TV or for in terms of the space, in terms of the artistic-wise, direction, everything. Also, there is something that still on the web that we don't see on mobile, which is interactivity in videos. The players on the web is much more advanced still than what we see on mobile. But I think by time this will solve itself. On the business side, it's still the advertising model and the monetization is not clear. Because, as I mentioned, the paid kind of format is not working out. So what is the alternative? How producers, how content producers will cover their costs? This is the challenge, maybe.
Can I cover that for you?
Yeah, of course.
The cost. I do remember back in the year 2000, I did a very interesting experiment with the BBC, which was to do what I call at the time the first ever sort of multicasting experience for one single program on television, radio, and the web. And at the time, we had to have two different teams doing the visual bit. So it was not streaming what we were doing for television on the web, because at the time we had different constraints. The bandwidth was very limited, and it was not possible that you can stream what you see on television. So we had to use different cameras, and we had to instruct the cameramen that they have to focus on faces, and they don't take a group of people together, and they have to make sure that they are focusing on people who don't move much, otherwise it's going to be jittery. Now, things are different because the bandwidth is changing and the devices are improving. But there is something that will not change, that will dictate that you have a look at the different specificities that are pertaining to the particular platform that you are using. It doesn't matter anymore that you can broadcast the same picture or stream of pictures on different devices because the bandwidth is much better than how it used to be, or the screen can be bigger and smaller. But it's very important to look at the capabilities of the device that you have. You will have a limited degree of interactivity on a TV channel or a TV screen that wouldn't match what you can have on a mobile digital device, be it a tablet or a mobile phone or a laptop. That's on the first issue of how to use content across platforms. On the issue that Wael has raised, I think there are a couple of hurdles in the way of coming up with a viable business model that can sustain the industry. One of them is to come to reason with the fact that the online advertising revenue is much more limited compared to the rest. We keep on saying it's between 1% and 2% compared to the total pool of money that is being put in advertising in the region, and it's changing. But still, you cannot generate revenue or a return on your investment online in the same way as you do on television or print. And that means that your expectations in terms of how much you will get for your product, for your intellectual property, again has to be reasonable. And there are a number of ways to do this. One is to talk about revenue share models, or to talk about models that rely on money coming from advertising experiences, and both we do in Yahoo. But it's very important to be reasonable as well, because at the end of the day, I'm reasonable from our side, from the side of those who are going to acquire these intellectual properties, be it a license or revenue share model, and make sure that we create a system whereby this industry can grow. It's not about who's going to have a higher cut or a bigger cut. It's not about whether I will be clever enough to get 70, 80% out of that potential revenue and give you 20 or 10 and consider myself a winner. But it's making sure that this industry can continue to grow. and can be flexible enough to change its model to something that is more viable if we discover that the one that we have now is not viable enough. And of course, the telcos will play a very important part, and I think, I hope I would hear some reflections from the audience if we have somebody that represents the telcos, because they are an integral part to this particular equation.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's pretty interesting to hear that from a content owner perspective. Wael really painted a dark picture on mobile, and I think because the way you're looking at it from the operator perspective. And I think, unfortunately, operators at some point in time really made a lot of money for content owners, and it eventually stopped. It slowed down a lot. And the main reason is because there were all these alternative platforms that democratized the process of distribution. Companies like Apple, companies like Google with Android, just allowed anybody to go on mobile pretty quick. And the fact that you use Google Current is a testimony of this. Yeah. So I think the picture has completely changed. When you say technology is changing pretty quick, I think it's faster than you even think. To a point, interactivity is already occurring on mobile. In our experience with NBC, the interactivity is massive. And at some point, we even started comparing apps that are done in this part of the world with apps that are done in the US for similar type of clients. We noticed that the users on this part of the world are far more engaging than users outside. And when I say, I'm saying it very clearly, up to 5 times, okay? The downloads are less, mainly because the distribution of these smart platforms is less. But in terms of engagement, it's 5 times. When I say engagement, it's the number of likes, the number of comments, the numbers of times the content is being shared. So I think technology is changing a lot quicker than we're thinking.
Yeah.
I think it's, regardless of the channel, I think for each channel there is a customer. And for each channel there is a set of, as Hussam said, there are specifics, but there is a base value that you can deliver to the customer. So we take our example, we distribute Al Jazeera content in Saudi, and Al Jazeera is available as a free app for all smartphones. Yeah, so you can, your iPhone, you can download a free application for Al Jazeera and listen to all of the news and actually see it. We still have, and our numbers for SMS breaking news is growing.
Yeah, SMS is still
so
one of the
it
things
is
that,
a much smaller screen. It is much less content that you can deliver. However, the customer perceives value in that in the way that he's receiving the content. Although it's available for free, he still pays to get. You can set it if you know how to set. You can set an alert in the app and get it for free. But then customers decide what the value that they're willing to pay for. So I see that, and now we're even working in our labs for supporting smart TV. So that's again another complexity. It just becomes, the screen becomes much more bigger, and then you have to adapt to what the customer, the specifics that Hussam was talking about. So if you work with content, I think it's very important that you need to set up your strategies to support and deliver value to consumers from wherever it's coming. All right, you're not going to deliver the same value, but then there is a base which you can build on for whatever channel you're coming from.
Do we have any questions from the audience at this point?
Do you have any answers?
Anyone? Well, I'll ask one more question then. In terms of, I mean, a lot of we're talking, we have the content side of things, we have the marketing and the packaging of it. How do you get to that return on investment on mobile right now in the entertainment industry? I mean, I think that's probably what you're struggling with a little bit. How much do you invest in creating content for mobile? So then you say to the media industries and your clients, we think that you'll actually get a return on this investment if you work with us and develop this content for mobile. How do you get there? I mean, how do you make that sales pitch, I guess, a little bit in an honest way?
Okay, in an honest way, I'm not going to put a dollar tag to it because that's the number one KPI is how much money am I making out of going mobile. So the other perspective I'm gonna paint is what happens if you're not there, and what happens when your consumers expect you to be on there and you're not there. Think about that, and the same applies to any platform. So it's not just mobile. It's the same thing today on Facebook. What happens if you don't have a Facebook page? People are still gonna talk about you. They're still gonna build. If they want to complain, they're still gonna complain. The difference is make sure it happens on your property so you can address it. If you don't, then you're going to lose this audience. So in terms of return, there's obviously a loss if you're not there. But if I have to also now go back and please some of the audience in terms of dollar perspective, Obviously, there's a big challenge, right? So in terms of advertising, specifically for the region, advertising generally on digital is very low as opposed to traditional. So getting that part of that money channeled to mobile is even bigger of a bigger challenge. But the model should be very straightforward. It should be the brands really taking the channel and owning it, building an audience on it, and eventually figure out a model, right? But if you don't do that, then you can forget mobile as being one of your potential revenue source.
It's a combination of things, actually. I mean, I fully agree with you on what you said, but I think one thing also we need to extend here is the educational process that we have to go through in this region so that people understand that engineering thinking is not the dominant factor here. I mean, I hear what Wael is saying, and I'm thinking about my own experiences moving from or shuttling between sort of traditional media and digital media and seeing that, whenever I come to an IT conference, we talk about content in terms of volume. So people keep on saying, 1% and 2% of the content on the net in Arabic is this and that, which is something I never comprehended, to be honest. I didn't know how they measure it. What is it? By kilo, by pounds, by kilobytes. What is it? How can you quantify content in this same way? And how can you? I mean, are you taking into consideration, for example, the repetition, the copying and pasting, the nature of the content that we are talking about? So it doesn't say that I'm happy with the content that we have, but it does say that the measures that we apply and the metrics that we use are very much coming from a completely different world, from an engineering world that seems to be very linear and likes to measure everything. But that's not the only factor in the whole process. So for us to get a return on the investment, I think there has to be, in addition to that, an educational process that both advertisers and people go through. Because you have lots of room within the digital sphere on a mobile platform to have a return on investment. Anything that people watch has a value because there is space around it that you can put an advertising experience around. So sponsorships can play a role. Product placement can play a role. The pre-rolls can play a role when we talk about video. Any app that has a value for people that they use on daily basis can be very attractive to advertisers and to brands. So to say that there are very few means of getting a return on investment, I think is not accurate. And I know that nobody has said it, but I think we need to see more of that because that in one way will create an environment where this industry can thrive and the content creation industry that has to go parallel to it also can thrive.
Regarding this matter, thank you, Hussam, you're on my panel, you helped me so much. Basically, as a publisher, as a content creator, I'm not looking to sell directly my content through mobile. This is not the story. This is not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is that we used, for example, we went directly to a free publishing platform and basically we went and built a value out of our intellectual property by going viral through a network that enabled us, which was the internet, the general internet. Now, my issue with the mobile is that this did not happen. This wasn't happen because there was so much barrier. You cannot go viral. You cannot build a brand. It wasn't. We did not deal with mobile as a publishing platform. A way you can reach for people and you can build value out of it. And then after the value, if I have a really good brand, if I have a really lovable character, then I can monetize differently on that by selling merchandising or selling licensing or anything else. But I wasn't able to do it through mobile, and that was my major issue. Basically, this is it. Yeah.
If I may just comment on this, I totally agree with you if you look at mobile from a distribution platform perspective. But if you look at it as mobile as a companion to enhance the experience,
yeah.
That's what Hussam even tackled earlier.
Yeah, sorry.
It's a completely different perception.
I remember. There is a difference between being a famous brand like NBC, Rotana, and moving to mobile because it was easy to promote the mobile app and was easy to promote. And when someone like us started from the grassroots, from the mobile itself, we did not go to TV. We did not have TV in our case. Now, what I'm telling you is that there is more and more people like us is going to appear. People who will go and become brands, especially for mobile and web. And this is the thing that we should build for and cater for.
I think there is. It's very interesting to hear the different views. I would agree with Hussam on a point that there's something that I come from content as well a few years ago, and then we lacked a function, and I don't know if that's something that you can relate to. We lacked a function of being able to sell ourselves or market ourselves to people that drive business. So you said that I'm not MBC or Rotania. You're right, but then you need to associate yourself with somebody like that. And if you look at our strategy for 2012 is that we really sat down and said, who are the business drivers of the digital era? And then we looked at it, and I consider telcos as a major business driver, not because of by the way, not because of their subscribers, because of the money that they're spending in advertising. If you look at Saudi, for example, I even visited Kuwait recently. The amount of advertising they're placing, and for them, it makes sense because it's indirect sales to them. So they want to reduce the churn, they want to increase the ARPU from the customers, and then you have the Yahoos and the Googles and these kind of people. I think so. The missing link is to have somebody that can actively promote, again, you said your content and your creative people. So you need to talk the language of marketing, and you need to talk that, because that's where the money is. That's where the advertising is. So you cannot say that I don't want to do that, because at the end of the day, it needs to be win-win. They have objectives, and we as content people have objectives. So we need to cover the gap between the objectives. Do you agree, Hussam?
I definitely agree, but I also think that the industry has to learn how to talk to content people. And that sort of volumetric approach of, we need more content. I don't know what they're talking about sometimes. What do you mean more content of what? More page impressions, more streams, but nobody really talks about what is needed and what type of streams are we talking about. So it's as I said, it's an educational process that we have all to go through. It definitely is the case that content people have to learn to be a little bit more structured in the approach to the content production process in terms of finding, creating strategies that identify the supply in the market and the gaps that exist in different places and different genres, and seeing what is it that advertisers can warm up to so that we can produce a little bit more of it so that we can get a return on our investment and so on and so forth. So it's not just about producing something that I like to produce, it's producing something that has value for two parties, two important parties, the consumer, the user, as well as the advertiser, and making sure that we create that ecosystem in an ethical way. There are lots of discussions now around branded content and around product placement, and I would worry about content providers being put in a situation where they have to do things that they really shouldn't do, because your content is so, and your intellectual property is so valuable that you really don't have to compromise it by turning it into a purely selling tool for merchandise. And that balance is really critical, and it's a social responsibility more than anything else.
Do we have a question in the audience? We'll take one question, and then we're going to need to wrap up. So if you have questions, raise your hand up front. That's fine.
Thank you very much. Very interesting discussion. In a way or another, I can see here 5 fine Arab brands here in front of me. But at the end, guys, what we are doing here is just sort of using and utilizing somebody which was created by others in a way or another. I mean, yes, we can know now good in creating content using the same tools that others are doing and repeating the same thing, but sort of localizing it. My question is, when we can see some sort of more innovation, some new ideas, introduce something to the world which is now generated from here. I mean, you are creating these things, you are doing your job. I'm sure that Hussam with Yahoo will be able to come up with more innovative ideas now because of Yahoo and Yahoo support. But what I wish to see is really new innovative ideas and trends coming from guys like you who have this power of like intelligence and knowledge. Any comments?
Thank you for that compliment. I
It's not a
actually,
compliment.
huh?
It's not a compliment.
No, no, the first
Compliment.
part. The
Hassan
first
knows
part.
me.
The first part. Now, from my side, I spend a lot of time like with friends these guys here, and we share experiences and we share projects which are in the pipeline. And I believe if you look at projects, I know from our, projects that are in our labs or in these guys' labs, which are very creative, and definitely I don't see us less than any other. And then if we can learn from somebody else, why not? We learn and we excel.
Well, I think, Walid, I think, I fully agree with you that this aspiration has always been there. And I hear it repeated all the time and sort of, echoed several times in the media. We need technology that is coming from within. We need our culture reflected in the technology. But, when you look at it, whatever we get and we perceive it as coming from outside has always been an intellectual product that has been made by contributions from different parts of the world. So whatever technology we get from what we call the West is not really Western in any sense. There have been contributions in it from different parts. And I think, the anxiety shouldn't be there. I think we should be relaxed about using any type of technology or any innovation that we come across and develop it, and something naturally will happen. And I'm sure lots of these things are happening, and maybe we cannot remember them now. But I don't share that anxiety about having something that comes from within. I think it's already happening. What Badr, you don't agree?
Sorry, I mean content being produced for mobiles, new ideas of like downloading stuff, creating videos, movies, cartoons, whatever. All of these things are there. I'm not talking about like I mean, it's not like only a following thing. I know that what is happening around the world is created by different minds from around the world. But again, I'm talking about something new idea. I mean, something like in the first morning session about like this speeding camera thing, maybe. Those innovative ideas that can. I'm sure that we have good brains that can create things, not only utilize things which was created by others. I mean, this is my question, my point.
I think we have a lot of great people in the audience that could create things too, not just people on stage.
Would you like to?
Yeah, I'd like to just insist on one point. It all depends on where you're looking from, okay? So unfortunately, there's a lot of great success stories in this region. Kharabish is one of them. They're a great content owner, content creator that went strictly on the internet without the help of anyone from their little offices in Amman, okay? And they just happen to be lucky today being on this mountain. There are tons of content creators today on the web that are in Saudi Arabia. You're gonna see a lot of them. Just go on YouTube and you're gonna see that there's constant content being created every day on it.
Sounds like branded conference.
Sorry?
Sounds like branded conference.
So that's from a content creation perspective. From a platform perspective, I do agree with you. There's not a whole lot of platforms that are coming from this part of the world in terms of distribution. But I think, and hopefully some of us will probably do something about it. And music, for example, a platform like iTunes, which makes up to 80% of music revenues globally for record labels, does not exist in this part of the world, where labels here are seeing, for example, physical sales dying and digital sales not compensating. However, probably in this year or towards the beginning of next year, we're probably going to start seeing platforms emerging from this part of the world to help distribute content in a legal way. So,
Yeah, my answer to this is that basically innovation is not only about technology, and to be honest with you, technology will not make our lives better. It's how you use technology and what do you do within technology. And basically, for me, technology is not something for Arab only or for American only. It's a global thing. By the way, Google Current is a new technology that enables anyone to publish and create Android and iPhone application with one click or one stream. And it was developed by an Arab engineer working on Google. Basically, he's an Arab working in Google. His name is Sami Shalabi.
This is what I'm talking about. Yes, I mean, using Google Current is something which is you are doing well, using
he
all
actually
those
created
That's my
it.
area, it's
I'm
not
saying
the
an
product.
Arab
But
actually created
creating
Google Currents.
something like Google Currents
Okay.
is something else. This is what I'm asking about.
Yeah.
Creating new tools, creating new ideas. You are great in using all of these things. No question about this. I can't argue with
Okay.
this. I'm talking
Do we have
about
any other
excellent.
questions? We get your point. Do we have one more question before we close? The woman right
I
there.
have 4 more questions. How about getting all the 4 questions together so that
What's that?
we don't let anybody leaving frustrated without an answer?
Hi, I just want to ask about your personal opinion. You're talking a lot about the region, but I haven't been here living in Qatar for a long time, but I want to know your opinion, or who are the social media leaders here in Qatar? So I know ICT, of course, but
Thanks.
so who's doing it right? Like, who is doing it right when it comes to mobile connection, or when it comes to Facebook, Twitter, and like, how did they do it? I don't know if like you would understand or you would know, like people here in Qatar. Like, I want it to be more localized, not just the region. So do you see what I'm saying? Because I know like Vodafone is doing a great job because they're really connecting to people. They're always, whenever someone has a negative feedback, they always reply. So what do you think they're doing, and what do you think they're doing right, and how can we learn from them? Or, so this is my question.
Do you know
It's a big question.
Yeah.
I can give you an answer, but it's not the correct one. You know, the best in managing this social media sphere are the revolutionaries in the Middle East, not necessarily the telcos. I mean, when you see the plethora of tools that people are using now in order to disseminate their social messages, you will be surprised. I mean, I learned about Bamboozer, for example, from people who have been uploading video live when TV channels could not access particular areas of Cairo or Tunisia, and they had to disseminate live messaging from there, live video. So I particularly think that users are becoming much more intelligent than media professionals, and sometimes more intelligent than telco people, and they're finding means of massively communicating with others and developing collaboration models across boundaries of geography and ideology sometimes. It's a nice answer, but it's not exactly what you're after.
Yeah, I'm talking about more industries, not like personal, but more like industries. Let's say
That would be branded content again, I don't know. Areas
None of them.
none of the above.
Yeah, I can't even say ICT Qatar is great. I see a lot of hands still up, but I'm actually going to wrap it up because, what's that? What's that? You have a good example?
Qatar
Airways?
Airways.
Qatar Airways.
closing
Yeah, go ahead. A couple
I have a
closing remarks.
Remark on this specific. I think social media for me is a means. Like Hussam said, it's a means to do something. It's not. A lot of people talk about, and we go to conferences saying social media, and everybody wants to create a but then you need to know what you want to deliver via social media. I think that's why Hussam used the example of people. It worked very well when people delivered the right things using social media. They used it as a tool when TV was down. They used it as a tool when things. But like in Africa today, we've seen a lot of examples on how Twitter was an enabler for people that don't have TV, that don't have even landlines and things like that. So I think social media is just a way or a means of if used well, it can create value. I think it's not by itself a product.
There are lots of best practices that you can see around you from small organizations like, for example, Batuta Films, who created the first drama series on the web called Shankabut, and they use social tools associated with the production and distribution methods that they have in a very effective way. You can look at particular talents in the region. You have Saudis who have hundreds of thousands of followers,
Millions.
and who are just doing stand-up comedy, and they are more known on the web and on the Twitter sphere and on Facebook than anywhere else. And most of the young people would know them, and users or viewers of TV wouldn't really recognize them. But younger generations would know them, and they're really massive. So I wouldn't say that it has already been consolidated in one particular company that is doing better than others, or one social media approach. We're all learning in this process, and the trends are changing, and people are changing the ways they are using these tools, and we're learning from them more than they are learning from us.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up with that. Could we give a round of applause to our panelists?